What's going on, everybody? Kalipus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G. Now, as always, if you do end up wanting to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the description where I will be linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the A34 5G, we're getting a 6.6-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 390, and a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. With the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G, we're getting a 6.5-inch 90Hz PLS TFT display with a 720p resolution, a PPI of 270, and a 20:9 aspect ratio. So in pretty much every way, the A34 5G definitely has the better display between the two, at 6.6 inches versus again 6.5 with the A13 5G. The A34 5G is a bit larger. Now, the difference isn't really insane, but you definitely can tell, and if you're going to be on your phone a bit more, it will make a bit of a difference. In addition to this, with the A34 5G, not only are we getting a much sharper image with a 1080p resolution versus again 720p with the A13 5G, but with the Super AMOLED, we're also getting nicer colors and much better viewing angles. So if you're outside in the sun, for example, the A34 5G is going to be quite a bit easier to see. So in general, if you're looking for a phone that has a really nice display, I would definitely go with the A34 5G. But on the other hand, for what it is, the display we get with the A13 5G is at least decent. So if you're not really going to be on your phone a lot, consuming a lot of content, and you really just need something for more basic activities, it still will at least get the job done. For storage, with the A34 5G, we're getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and with the A13 5G, we're getting 64GB with microSD card expansion as well. So between the two, clearly here, the A34 5G having doubled the storage definitely has a huge advantage. So if you're someone who's constantly downloading apps and games and stuff like that takes up a bit more space, the A34 5G will be a much better choice for you. But on the other hand, with the A13 5G, 64GB, while not being amazing, is at least acceptable. And for the average user, as long as you're mindful of what you're putting on your phone and you offload whatever you can onto a microSD card, with this phone you will at least get by. But again, if storage is a bit more important to you, I would definitely go with the A34. For security features, both phones have Face Unlock and they both have fingerprint scanners. With the A34 5G, it's right here in the display, so definitely nice and premium looking. And with the A13 5G, it's on the power key. But starting with the A34 5G, let's give them a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the A13 5G. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So real fast and responsive, no issues at all. And again, remember, both phones have Face Unlock too, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now taking a look at the camera setups here, with the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G, up front, we get a 13 megapixel selfie camera, then on the back, we get a triple camera setup, with a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. For video, this phone can record 4K videos in both the rear and front cameras, so definitely nice to see there. With the A13 5G, up front, we get a 5 megapixel selfie camera, then on the back, we get a triple camera setup, with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. For video, this phone has a max recording quality of 1080p in both the rear and front cameras, so no 4K here. In general, both phones do have really good camera setups, and for the average user, you're really not going to go wrong with either of them, especially if you don't really care about having an ultra wide camera and you're really just taking normal photos, because when it comes to photo quality, for what they are, both camera setups are really good. That being said though, of course, if you do want an ultra wide camera, the A34 5G will have an advantage, because again, this phone does have one, whereas unfortunately, the A13 5G doesn't. And again, the A34 5G can record 4K videos, so if you're recording a lot of videos, having this option is definitely nice, so if that does matter to you, definitely keep this in mind. And when it comes to photo quality, the A34 5G is a bit better too. Not really by an insane amount, but overall, I feel like it's pretty clear. If you do want the better camera between the two in general, the A34 5G is definitely the better choice here. But the A13 5G is still really not bad, and the photo quality, while not being quite as good, is still definitely good, especially compared to most phones in this price range. So if you are more of a casual camera user, you won't go wrong with the A13 5G either. To give you an idea of what they can do, first, here's some pictures taken with the A34 5G. So overall, definitely great quality here. Maybe not quite as good as a much higher end device, but for the average user, I feel like you're not really going to need a whole lot more than this. So if you are taking a lot of pictures and you want to make sure everything looks super nice, but maybe you still don't want to spend $1,000 on a flagship phone, in that case, the A34 5G will be a perfect choice for you. And then here's some pictures taken with the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G. And again, while the A34 is still a bit better in my opinion, the A13 5G is really not far behind. And again, for the average user, for stuff like the casual social media post every now and then, and using Snapchat where the quality doesn't really even matter, or simply just sending photos to friends and family, the A13 5G will still get the job done just fine. So unless you're really taking a lot of pictures, in which case you probably want the best camera between the two, or you just want an ultra-wide camera, aside from that, the A13 5G is still going to be perfectly fine. Now when it comes to RAM and processor, with the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 1080 processor. With the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G, we're getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 700. Now overall, when it comes to performance, there is a pretty big difference here, with the A34 5G being significantly faster. So if you are going to be on your phone a lot doing more demanding activities, the A34 5G will be a much better choice. But on the other hand, for more basic light use, if you're doing stuff like light social media, web browsing, maybe watching the occasional video every now and then, and you're really just not going to be on your phone a ton, in that case, the A13 5G will be perfectly fine. And in my experience, I haven't really had any performance issues with this phone. It's just really not that fast. So again, if you're really not going to be on your phone a ton and you're really just looking for something basic that gets the job done for more casual everyday activities, the A13 5G will still be perfectly fine. But again, if you do want the faster phone between the two, keep in mind, the A34 5G, while still not being anywhere near flagship level, is much faster than the A13 5G, and this phone is quite a bit better for stuff like gaming, for example. So if you are going to be using your phone a lot more, definitely go with the A34. For the battery, both phones have 5000 mAh batteries, with the A34 5G supporting 25W fast charging and the A13 5G supporting 15. Now, the difference in charging speed is kind of subjective. It just really depends on how important that is for you. If you're like me and you have your phone plugged in most of the time anyway, then I feel like it's really not going to matter at all. But if you are in a situation where it's a bit more important to charge your phone faster, the A34 5G will have a bit of an advantage. But either way, both phones have really large batteries, so with either of them, you can expect to get great battery life and longevity. For the software, both phones do currently have Android 13, but keep in mind, the A34 5G did actually come with it, and while the A13 5G does currently have Android 13, it started out with Android 11. Now, the reason why this actually matters is because with Samsung phones, you're going to get about 4 major updates. So with the A34 5G, you can expect to get Android 14, 15, 16, and 17. Whereas with the A13 5G, since again this phone did originally have Android 11, it's probably only going to get 14 and 15. Now, if you're someone who really just gets one phone and keeps it for a couple years and gets another one, this might not matter, and in that case, either phone will be perfectly fine. But if you're going to be keeping your phone for longer than 2 years, the A34 5G will have an advantage. On the other hand though, keep in mind, the A13 5G does have a headphone jack, whereas unfortunately the A34 5G doesn't, and seeing as the A33 5G didn't either, this is really not a surprise. But if you do want a headphone jack, maybe you use normal wired headphones, while I feel like this is still not a deal breaker for most people, you might want to get a phone that actually does have a headphone jack. So in that regard, the A13 5G does have an advantage. In addition to this, both phones do have NFC, so if you like to use tap and pay, you'll be happy to know you can do that with either phone no problem. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? In general, by this point in the video, it's probably pretty clear in basically every way, the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G is definitely the better device here. That being said though, especially considering the price difference between the two, each phone is going to have a slightly different purpose. On one hand, if you really want a phone that has a decent amount of features, a really nice display, great performance, and a really nice camera, but maybe you still don't want to spend a bunch of money on a higher end device. In that case, the A34 5G is a great choice. I mean, for $327 with this phone, I would say you're really getting quite a bit for what you're spending. But on the other hand, with the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G, I'm honestly not sure what this phone is going for. The vast majority of carriers don't even have it anymore, but I would be really surprised if it was over $200. At this point, it should be around $150 or less. So considering that, if you really are just looking for a basic 5G phone that doesn't necessarily have the best display or performance or storage or anything like that, but is still good enough to get the job done for more basic activities, and does have a decently nice camera, albeit without a ton of features, in that kind of situation where your needs are just not really that complex, while the A34 5G is a great phone for the money, in that kind of situation you're probably not going to use all its features, so you're most likely going to be better off just getting the A13 5G and saving a bit of money. But this concludes my comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G. Again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.